never thought I'd say this, but after 14 years of living in Europe, I'm still afraid of the phone.
And it's not why you think. Do you want to know what it's actually like living abroad as an American?
Beer?
Only you can decide if the beer is worth the brew. Should you move abroad? I don't know. I can't tell you that. But we did over 10 years ago. Rhode Island, California.
I love living in Germany. I love living in Europe. And of course, day one, when you move anywhere on the planet or in Europe, communication is a problem. And we're not talking about, of course, you're gonna have to learn that new language, and that's gonna be an issue, that's gonna be a struggle. But we're more talking about the things that you don't expect that come with a lack of communication.
Exactly. For example, going to a party here in Germany, for us at least, it's not only a language barrier, but it's also a cultural barrier. We have to figure out, like, how do I meet people? And then you kind of, maybe sit in a corner and drink by yourself, and that's never fun at any party, no matter where you are.
Not as excited to be invited places because you arrive,
right.
And it's 99% Germans, as it should be, because it's Berlin, and they're all speaking German as they should be, because it's
the language.
It's Germany, it's Europe. In your country it might be Italian or whatever, but you don't want people to change to English for you. But what happens is you can't jump into that conversation, and slowly over time, like you said, you end up in the corner and you get this really feeling in your gut of isolation. And it's one of the main reasons that people do go back home in those first few months, because they really just feel like people aren't taking the effort to include them,
Right, it's isolation feeling, and no one is, I think, immune to it. It can't happen, but you gotta get through it. So you might be wondering, why would someone be afraid of talking on the phone? Besides us, being in our 30s, no one talks on the phone anyways. But especially when you move abroad, talking on the phone can be the most terrifying thing in the world. Obviously, you don't have the cues you have when you talk to someone in person with hands and gestures and movements and reading the lips. On the phone is just what your ears can tell you.
Yeah.
And sometimes your ears don't work as well as you want them to when you're learning a second language.
It's not just your ears, it's just phones, because even in 2025, speakers on phones, even if you're hearing it in your native language, you're hearing it in English, sometimes you have trouble understanding what somebody's saying. They're native German speakers or native whatever speakers, and they're speaking quickly. And on the phone through a horrible speaker, you've just moved abroad, somewhere in Europe, you're taking some classes, the local language. For us it's German, you know it a little bit, but you need context. Like if you go to the doctor's office, okay, I'm expecting these certain words at the doctor's office, right? So you need context. I know even to this day, and I don't know if I feel embarrassed about it or not, unknown number, I let it ring. I wait for a voice message in order to get that context, and then I call back. And on top of this, there's a different level of this. Living in a new place abroad, you're also worried that that phone call is from the immigrant office, basically telling you, you're done. You have to, you know what I mean?
Right.
From some important authority basically saying, game over.
You owe your taxes, you know this. I don't know what you're talking about.
We're at something that can be terrifying.
Yeah, and another challenge, is of course, if you do find a partner in your new country, is meeting the in-laws. Meeting in-laws is always awkward, in the first time.
Right.
And especially when your language skills aren't great in your second language or third language.
And they can't speak maybe any of your language.
Right. My first Christmas I had here in Germany, I was in here for only 3 months. I went to my partner's parents' home, and her dad looks down at me opening gifts. He goes, "Are you boring?"
In English.
In English.
Okay.
Trying to know.
Are you boring? Jesus, the last thing you want to hear from your potential father-in-law.
Exactly. Terrifying. I want to ask me, are you bored? You want to open up a gift? Haha, I want to make a joke. But of course, in that moment, I feel like the tiniest person in the world. Now we can laugh about it. It's fine.
I know the first time I met my now wife's family, my knee was shaking on the train going towards her house, because I knew my German level was pretty low and I knew they barely spoke English. When you can't communicate, you can't truly show those people who you are as a person, because maybe you're funny and you got a quick wit. When you don't speak the language, there's nothing quick about you at all. A much more boring, quiet version of myself. I can only show my in-laws maybe 70, 80% of Geoff, of me.
Yeah.
And that affects you.
Yeah, I feel like when I speak German, I'm Alex, but a bit of a dumber Alex.
And after a while, you establish yourself in your new home. For us, it's Berlin. And, we get our new chosen family. I met my wife. You really have things going for you. But the one thing people don't really tell you is that eventually you start feeling this heavy feeling of guilt and selfishness.
First thing, of course, comes is family. I think that's the first thing everyone thinks about when they do move away, is how you're gonna miss your family and you're gonna miss big holidays.
Right, and you're leaving them behind, you feel like.
Right, exactly. And you know, everyone has a certain amount of vacation days a year. And of course, you don't want to use all of them just to go back to the States.
And a certain amount of money each year too.
Also, a lot of money each year as well.
You know, you're seeing the people you love, your family, your parents, your nieces, your nephews, you're only seeing them once a year.
If that, yeah.
And you physically see that change of time going by. Realistically, in a perfect world, I would visit once every 2 or 3 months, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it comes to a point where I'm only able to go once a year, especially when holidays come, you start seeing the photos, right, on Instagram, online, of your sister or your other family members with your parents.
Yeah.
On whatever Easter, whatever, you know, having a barbecue, and just feel bad that you're not there.
Yeah, especially for me, you know, I come from a Jewish family, so there's some Jewish holidays I haven't celebrated since I moved away 11 years ago, and I really miss a lot of them. Like, I miss Rosh Hashanah, you know, I miss Yom Kippur. Just get over something like that, you know, you just get over your family.
Another thing, oddly, that we feel like we've kind of ditched or left behind and you feel guilty about is kind of leaving other Americans behind in a weird way. But it's just,
Totally.
you know, especially when you look and you see something bad happening in the U.S. and it's like, oh, like I want to go and I want to, like, you want to do something about it, but then you remember you're physically, you know, 6,000 miles away.
100%, especially, you know, time of this filming, you know, last week was the No Kings protests, and I would have loved to have been part of that community, and, you know, really fought and showed, you know, my support.
Solidarity, yeah.
Exactly, my support. But unfortunately, we were here watching from afar. But yeah, it sucks not being able to be a part of these things, because we are Americans after all, and we always will be. But then you kind of realize too, it's like, oh, I'm looking at this news more because I am feeling more like a European, even though maybe people living here will say you'll never will be, and probably never will be. But it's kind of a cool feeling.
Never be a real German either.
Of course. Yeah. But it's a cool feeling to kind of read the news and see how that affects me here now. Being from the United States, I think that there's always a little extra scrutiny on Americans because our culture does reach really far and wide in the whole world.
Music, films, politics, everything.
It's like everyone's heard of the United States, of course. And we're, you know, we're also allowed people. Being abroad, I think it really puts an extra scrutiny. Yeah.
Which leads to you as a person being judged for the actions of the country that you're from, you know? Which does hurt. And I think it's one of the more unfortunate things about living abroad. And the first time I experienced this was when I moved to Europe back in 2008, 2009. This was only a few years after the invasion of Iraq, and, you know, and that situation was still ongoing. Lots of people coming up to me asking, like, why did this happen? Why are you guys doing this? Basically, as if it was your choice, you put the stamp on it, and people really looking at you as a representation of your country. So you have to be kind of prepared for that.
During Trump's first administration, I got a lot of people asking, why did this happen? Why are Americans voting for this? What's the deal there? I don't know. I'm not there. I'm here. But it's something that people like want answers for, even though we have nothing to do with.
And it's not, doesn't apply just to our country. I mean, people from living anywhere, moving abroad, they face stereotypes about their country and what their country has done. With the new administration and kind of the loss slowly of American democracy and freedom in the United States, a lot of people looking for answers that, quite frankly, we can't give.
And I know you're probably watching as well and be like, you know, like two white guys talking about stereotypes. Obviously, we probably have it better than most other people. If you compound that, if we were from a different race or a different gender as well, it's even more hardcore, I think.
Right.
And obviously this happens, of course, when things are going, you know, not favorably in the United States than they do when things are going pretty well.
But it's not something you have to worry about, because eventually you just become part of the community. You're not just the American.
Yeah, and you know, I like that. Do you know what else I like, Jeff?
What's that?
Is riding my bike. And if you want to learn about that, click right down here. But until then, everyone, please stay safe, stay healthy, and of course,
stay thirsty.
That's it. Cheers.